When life feels like it's caving in, when nothing is going right, and when it seems like everything is working against you, it's easy to believe that you're alone. It's easy to assume that because things are falling apart, God has abandoned you. But let me tell you something. Adversity isn't proof of abandonment. In fact, it's often the opposite. The very moments when you feel lost, broken, and at your weakest are the moments when God is actually closest to you. We've all been there, crying in frustration, overwhelmed by the weight of what's happening, questioning why life is so unfair. And in those moments, the mind plays tricks on you. It whispers lies, telling you that if God truly cared, you wouldn't be going through this. That if he was really with you, he would have stopped the pain before it started. But that's not how faith works. That's not how growth works. Adversity is a test, but not the kind of test that determines your worth. It's the kind of test that strengthens you, refines you, and reveals just how powerful you really are. When you hit rock bottom, you're not being buried, you're being planted. Think about it. Some of the most beautiful things in nature come from the darkest places. A seed has to be buried in the dirt before it can grow into something great. Gold has to go through fire before it can shine. Diamonds are formed under immense pressure. And just like that, your challenges are shaping you into something stronger, something greater than you ever imagined. But when you're in the middle of it, when you're drowning in stress, fear, and uncertainty, it's hard to see that truth. That's why I want you to pause for a second and reflect on your life. Look back at the times you thought you wouldn't make it through. Remember the nights you cried, the times you felt hopeless, the moments when you thought it was over. And yet, here you are. You made it through. Maybe you came out stronger. Maybe you're still healing. But you survived. And that's proof that God never left you, even when you felt like he did. When everything is against you, it's easy to let fear take over. It's easy to believe the worst, to assume that you're cursed, to think that nothing will ever get better. But faith requires something different. Faith asks you to trust when you don't have the answers. Faith asks you to keep going when you can't see the finish line. Faith isn't about having a perfect, pain-free life. It's about believing that even in the storm, you are not alone. Some of the greatest leaders, the strongest people, and the most inspiring stories are born from struggle. Think about it. Every powerful comeback, every success story, every testimony of triumph starts with a period of hardship. It starts with rejection, failure, loss, and setbacks. But what separates those who rise from those who stay stuck is the belief that adversity is not the end. The people who refuse to quit, the ones who push forward even when they feel like they have nothing left, are the ones who discover the incredible truth that God is with them in the darkest of times. But let's be real, knowing that doesn't always make it easier. When you're in pain, when everything is going wrong, when your heart is breaking, it's hard to see the bigger picture. And that's okay. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. You don't need to understand why things are happening the way they are. All you need to do is hold on. Hold on to hope. Hold on to faith. Hold on to the belief that even though you can't see the full story, God is working behind the scenes. Because he is. Every struggle, every setback, every delay is preparing you for something greater. Think about the moments in your life when something didn't go the way you wanted it to. Maybe you lost a job, maybe a relationship ended, maybe you faced rejection. At the time, it felt like the worst thing in the world. But looking back, you can see how it led you to something better. Something you wouldn't have found if things had worked out the way you originally wanted. That's the power of faith. It doesn't always make sense in the moment, but when you trust that God has a plan, you start to see that even the hardest moments have a purpose. So when it feels like everything is against you, I want you to remember this. You are not alone. You are not forgotten, and you are not abandoned. The storm you're in right now is temporary. The pain you feel is not the end of your story. And the fact that you're still standing, still fighting, still showing up despite everything that's tried to break you is proof that God is with you. Adversity isn't a sign that you're on the wrong path. Sometimes it's confirmation that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Because growth is uncomfortable. Change is painful. And transformation requires struggle. But in the end, everything you're going through right now is shaping you into the person you were meant to become. So don't give up. Keep pushing, keep believing, keep holding on. Because the breakthrough you're waiting for is closer than you think. And when you come out on the other side, you'll realize that God was with you every step of the way. There's a battle happening inside of you every single day. On one side, you have your faith, the deep, unshakable belief that you are not alone, that things will get better, that you have a purpose. And on the other side, you have your feelings, the doubts, the fears, the insecurities, the exhaustion, the voice that tells you to give up. The problem is that most people let their feelings win. They wake up feeling tired, so they stay in bed. They feel overwhelmed, so they procrastinate. They feel afraid, so they don't take the risk. They feel unworthy, so they settle for less than they deserve. But here's the truth. Feelings are unreliable. They change constantly. One moment you're motivated, the next you're discouraged. One day you're full of hope, the next you're drowning in doubt. If you let your emotions dictate your actions, you'll stay stuck in a cycle of inconsistency, and inconsistency leads to regret. Faith, on the other hand, is a choice. It's not about what you feel, it's about what you decide. It's about waking up and saying, I may not feel strong today, but I choose to believe that I am. It's about standing in the middle of a storm and saying, I may not see a way out, but I trust that one exists. Faith is the ability to move forward even when everything in you wants to stop. Let's get real. Faith isn't easy. It requires discipline. It requires a level of trust that goes beyond logic. It's one thing to believe when life is good, when you're succeeding, when everything is falling into place. But when nothing is going right, when the doors keep closing, when your heart is broken, that's when real faith is tested. Because faith isn't just about believing that good things will happen. It's about believing that even when things don't go your way, God is still in control. It's about trusting that even when you feel forgotten, you are still seen. It's about knowing that even when you feel unworthy, you are still loved. Feelings will try to convince you otherwise. They'll tell you that you're alone, that you're failing, that things will never change. And if you listen to them, if you let them dictate your choices, they will trap you in a place of fear and hesitation. But what if you stopped letting your emotions run your life? What if, instead of waiting to feel confident, you chose to act with confidence? What if, instead of waiting to feel ready, you decided to start? What if, instead of believing the lies of fear and doubt, you declared the truth over your life? The truth is, you don't have to feel strong to be strong. You don't have to feel brave to take action. You don't have to feel hopeful to keep moving forward. You just have to decide that your faith is bigger than your emotions. Think about the most successful, resilient people in the world. Do you think they feel motivated every single day? Do you think they feel confident all the time? No, but they show up anyway. They push forward even when they're tired. They take risks even when they're scared. Because they know that feelings are fleeting, but faith is what carries you through the tough times. Now, this doesn't mean ignoring your emotions. Your feelings are valid. It's okay to feel tired. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel discouraged. But don't let those feelings define your actions. Acknowledge them, process them, and then choose to move forward anyway. Because if you wait until you feel like it, you'll never take the first step. You'll never make the call. you'll never start the business, you'll never heal, you'll never move forward. Faith is not about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about creating it. It's about stepping out even when you're uncertain. It's about trusting that even when things don't make sense, God is leading you in the right direction. You have two choices. You can live by faith or you can live by feelings. One leads to purpose, growth, and breakthroughs. The other leads to fear, doubt, and regret. Which one are you going to choose? Life will throw battles at you, unexpected challenges, heartbreaks, failures, disappointments. And when you're in the middle of it, when everything feels like it's falling apart, it's easy to believe that you're losing, that you're stuck, that life is just unfair. But what if the battle you're fighting isn't meant to break you? What if it's actually meant to build you? What if the struggle you're facing is not a punishment, but a setup for something greater? See, the way you frame your battles determines how you experience them. If you see every challenge as a sign that you're failing, you'll start to believe that life is against you. But if you see your struggles as opportunities to grow, to rise, to prove to yourself what you're capable of, then everything changes. The situation may stay the same, but your mindset shifts. And when your mindset shifts, so does your power. Most people go through life believing that when things get hard, it means they're on the wrong path. They think obstacles mean stop. They assume setbacks mean they should give up. But the truth is, the greatest breakthroughs often come after the greatest struggles. Every person who has ever achieved something great has gone through battles that tested them, pushed them, made them question everything. But they made it through because they refused to let their struggles define them. They chose to reframe the battle. Think about it. Every hero in every story faces adversity. Imagine watching a movie where the main character never struggles, never fails, never faces any obstacles. It would be the most boring movie ever. What makes a story powerful is the fight. It's the moments where the hero is knocked down, but chooses to get back up. It's the setbacks, the challenges, the moments where everything seems lost, but somehow they find the strength to keep going. And the same is true for you. The battle you're in right now is not proof that you're failing, it's proof that you're growing. Struggles don't come to people who are standing still. Struggles come to those who are moving forward, stepping into new levels, breaking old cycles, and refusing to stay stuck. The fact that you're facing resistance means that you're on the edge of something bigger. But here's where it gets hard. Your mind will try to convince you otherwise. It will whisper, "This is too hard. You're not strong enough. You'll never make it through this." And if you believe those thoughts, you'll start to feel trapped. You'll start to believe the lie that you're powerless. But the moment you reframe the battle, the moment you shift your perspective from "this is happening to me" to "this is happening for me," everything changes. What if, instead of seeing your challenges as barriers, you saw them as preparation? What if, instead of feeling like a victim of your circumstances, you realized that you were being strengthened for something greater? What if, instead of focusing on how hard it is, you focused on how much stronger you're becoming? That shift in perspective is everything. Because the truth is, battles are unavoidable. You will face moments where you feel overwhelmed, exhausted, and ready to give up. You will encounter obstacles that seem impossible to overcome. But in those moments, you have a choice. You can let the battle break you, or you can let it build you. You can let it define you, or you can let it refine you. And I know it's not easy. When you're in the middle of the storm, it's hard to see the lesson. It's hard to believe that any good could come from it. But if you look back on your life, you'll see that some of the hardest moments were actually the ones that shaped you the most. The things you thought would destroy you ended up making you stronger. The setbacks you thought were the end turned out to be the beginning of something new. So right now, if you're in a battle, if you feel like you're up against something impossible, I want you to pause and reframe it. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" ask yourself, "What is this teaching me?" Instead of thinking, "I can't handle this," remind yourself, "I am stronger than I think." Instead of believing this is the end, declare, "This is just the beginning of my comeback." Because your mindset is your greatest weapon. Your perspective can either keep you stuck or push you forward. And the moment you start seeing your battles differently, the moment you shift your focus from fear to faith, from frustration to growth, from defeat to determination, that's the moment everything changes. You were never meant to be defeated by this. You were meant to rise. There's a voice inside your head that doesn't always tell the truth. It whispers doubts, fears, and insecurities. It tells you that you're not good enough, that you'll never succeed, that no one cares, that you're stuck. And the worst part, that voice sounds so familiar, so convincing, that you believe it. You don't even question it most of the time. The thought creeps in, "I'll never get through this." And instead of challenging it, you accept it. You allow it to settle into your mind, to shape your decisions, to dictate your actions. You start playing small. You hesitate. You give up before you even try. Not because it's true, but because you've heard it so many times that it feels true. But here's the truth. Those thoughts, they're lies. Every time you tell yourself you're not good enough, that's a lie. Every time you think you're not strong enough to get through this season, that's a lie. Every time fear convinces you to stay where you are instead of stepping into something greater, it's a lie. And yet, so many people live their entire lives listening to those lies. They let fear win. They let doubt keep them from their purpose. They let the pain of the past convince them that the future will never change. And that's exactly what the lies want, to keep you stuck, to keep you scared, to keep you from realizing just how powerful you really are. But you don't have to listen to them. You don't have to accept them as truths. Because the real battle isn't what's happening around you, it's what's happening inside you. And if you can learn to silence the lies, you can change everything. Think about it. What if, instead of believing the voice that says, "You're not enough," you replaced it with, "I am capable, I am strong, I am worthy"? What if, instead of letting fear stop you, you declared, "I will not be held back by doubt"? What if, instead of allowing the past to define you, you chose to believe, "My future is not determined by my failures, but by my faith"? That one shift, choosing to replace the lies with truth, can change the entire direction of your life. Because what you tell yourself matters. Your thoughts shape your actions, and your actions shape your future. If you believe you're not good enough, you'll never try. If you believe nothing will change, you won't take the steps to make it happen. If you believe the worst about yourself, you'll live in fear instead of faith. So, how do you silence the lies? You fight back. You don't let negative thoughts take root. You challenge them. You replace them with words that build you up instead of tear you down. You stop allowing your emotions to dictate what you believe and start declaring truth over your life. Because here's the thing, just because you feel something doesn't mean it's true. Just because you feel like a failure doesn't mean you are one. Just because you feel stuck doesn't mean there isn't a way forward. Feelings are temporary, they come and go. But truth is solid. And the truth is, you are stronger than you think. You are more capable than you believe. And you are not alone in this battle. You don't have to let the lies win. You don't have to let fear keep you from stepping into your purpose. You have the power to shift your mindset, to rewrite the narrative, to stand up and say, "I will not be defined by my doubts. I will not be held back by fear. I will not believe the lies that try to keep me small." And when you do that, when you start speaking truth over your life, everything changes. Your confidence grows, your faith strengthens, Your actions align with your purpose. And suddenly, the things you once thought were impossible start to feel within reach. So today, make a decision. Decide that you will no longer be controlled by lies. Decide that you will no longer let fear win. Decide that when doubt whispers in your ear, you will answer back with faith. Because the moment you silence the lies, you make room for the truth to take over. And when you live in truth, nothing can stop you. When life feels overwhelming, when everything seems too big, too heavy, too impossible to fix, the instinct is to freeze. You get stuck in your thoughts, overanalyzing every possible outcome, trying to figure out the perfect plan, waiting for the perfect moment. But here's the hard truth. There is no perfect plan. There is no perfect moment. And the more you wait, the more stuck you become. The way forward isn't found in some grand, life-changing decision. It's not about having all the answers. It's not about taking a massive leap. The way forward is in one small step. Just one. Because that's how real change happens. Not in huge, dramatic gestures, but in tiny, consistent actions. One decision, one movement, one shift in the right direction, and then another and another, until suddenly you look back and realize you're not in the same place anymore. But most people never take that first step because they convince themselves that small steps don't matter. They think, if I can't change everything right now, why even bother? They underestimate the power of momentum, the power of simply moving forward, no matter how slowly. Think about it. When a person is drowning, they don't need to swim all the way to shore in one breath. They just need to focus on their next breath, their next movement, their next attempt to stay above water. That's how survival works. That's how progress works. So, if you feel like you're drowning right now, drowning in stress, in uncertainty, in fear, the answer isn't to figure out how to fix everything at once. The answer is to do one thing. Just one. Maybe it's getting out of bed. Maybe it's making one phone call. Maybe it's sending one email, taking one deep breath, saying one prayer. Maybe it's writing down one small goal for the day. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be something. Because movement creates momentum. When you take one step, no matter how small, it shifts something inside you. You start to believe that progress is possible. You start to see that you're not as stuck as you thought. And that belief is everything. That belief is what keeps you going. The problem is we tend to look too far ahead. We focus on how much more we have to do, how far we still have to go, how impossible the finish line looks from where we are right now. But the finish line isn't your concern right now. Your concern is your next step. That's it. If you focus on today, on this moment, on what you can do instead of what you can't, you take back your power. You stop living in fear of the future and start taking control of what you can change right now. And the best part? That one step leads to another, and another. And before you know it, you've made more progress than you ever thought possible. So whatever it is that's weighing you down, whatever challenge feels too big to face, whatever goal feels too far away, stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop telling yourself that you have to have it all figured out. Just take one small step, and then another, and watch how everything begins to shift. There are moments in life when it feels like you've reached the end, like everything you've worked for has fallen apart, like you've messed up too much, lost too much, struggled too much to ever recover. You look around and all you see are closed doors, shattered dreams, and mistakes that you can't undo. And in those moments, the lie creeps in, the lie that tells you this is it, that there's no way forward, that your story is over. But that's not the truth. The truth is, this is just a chapter, and a chapter's not the whole story. Think about the greatest books, the most inspiring stories, the most powerful comebacks. Do they ever go from beginning to victory without any struggle in between? No. There's always a moment where everything falls apart, where the main character is knocked down so hard that it seems impossible they'll ever rise again. But they do. And so can you, because your story isn't over. Maybe right now you feel like you're at the lowest point you've ever been. Maybe you've lost something or someone that meant the world to you. Maybe you feel like you've wasted time, like you should be further along, like you're stuck in a cycle of failure and disappointment. Maybe you've made mistakes that you can't erase. And maybe deep down, you're wondering if it's even worth trying anymore. But listen to me. This is not where your story ends. You may be in a difficult season, but that does not mean you are finished. You may feel lost, but that does not mean you are without purpose. You may be broken, but that does not mean you are beyond repair. You are still breathing. And as long as you are breathing, you have another chance, another opportunity, another moment to rise. Because pain is not the period at the end of your story, it's the comma before the comeback. I know it's hard to believe when you're in the middle of it. I know that when life knocks you down, it's easy to believe that you'll never get back up. But if you look back, you'll see that this isn't the first time you've struggled. This isn't the first time you felt lost, hurt, or afraid. And yet, you survived. You found a way through. You made it past things you once thought would break you. So what makes this time any different? You may not see the way forward right now, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You may not feel strong right now, but that doesn't mean you aren't capable of moving forward. You may not know what the next chapter holds, but that doesn't mean it's not worth turning the page. Because here's what I know for sure. If you give up now, you'll never see how your story could have turned out. You'll never know what was waiting for you on the other side of this struggle. You'll never experience the healing, the redemption, the purpose that is still ahead of you. Your story is still being written, and the hardest chapters, the ones filled with pain, loss, and disappointment, those are the ones that make the victory even more powerful. Those are the moments that shape you, refine you, and prepare you for what's next. So don't quit, don't stop here. Don't let this chapter define your entire story. Because one day, you're going to look back at this moment, the moment you thought was the end, and realize that it was actually the beginning of something greater.